What would you do if you found out your boss had an after-work podcast where they talked about their own employees? We're going to get into that and all of the update posts in a bit, but first, my boss thinks my employee is lying about having cancer. Originally posted to Ask a Manager November 4th, 2024, my operations manager Burton took me to one side on Friday to ask me whether I had seen any evidence that my employee Belle, who had been off that week, really had cancer. I am now second-guessing every interaction and whether I've either been manipulated or been a horrible boss. Our team is a part of a large nonprofit. Our current government-funded contract is to do work at a range of locations, so I barely see my team face-to-face. On paper, Belle has not had a great year. She had to have her probation extended due to losing both parents in the space of a month, but I tried to make it clear that it was to give her a chance to recover at least a little from the loss. She passed and was doing fine until a month or so ago when she disclosed a cancer diagnosis, which she then confirmed was stage 3, so I could prep HR for accommodations around her treatment plan. I asked for the dates of any appointments or any letters so I could book the leave for her without her having to take annual leave. We get very generous sick time in this country and with this company. I have asked multiple times. Burton has asked multiple times. HR has asked us to ask her to chase a missing reference. Every time I ask, Belle says that she'll do it that day, but then something else will happen or she will change the subject. I started to feel like I was pestering her, but we need to know when she's going to be in the hospital so we can support her and cover the work she's scheduled for. I asked her again at lunchtime today, and she promised to email the documents at some point today. I fed this back to Burton and resumed my own appointments. Burton's response was that something wasn't right. At 4:45 p.m., I received an email from Belle resigning with 2 weeks' notice. Have I pushed someone who's had a lot of gravel to shovel this year over the edge by pushing for limited medical info we need to be able to support her? Or is Burton right and this bears further investigation? I've lost friends and relatives, including a parent to cancer, and I don't know how I'll react if it turns out she made it up. I also don't know how I'll react if it turns out Belle really is as ill as she says she is and just hasn't sent the proof over because it makes it too real for her and is resigning because work and all that has happened to her this year is too much. If Belle is lying, will it impact Burton's opinion of me and my judgment? And what else might she have been lying about? I am in a pickle. So quickly, just before we get into the update, considering what we know, considering the fact that they never provided any of the info and are suddenly resigning, I'd love for you guys to think about what you think is the right answer, and then let me know if you were right or wrong after the update. So OP goes on to post an update just over a year later, December 1st, 2025. Yes, this is an update to, my boss thinks my employee is lying about having cancer. Yes, she was. She also lied about losing her parents. She's also now lying on LinkedIn about the dates she was working for us, with her end date a few months earlier than her resignation. It turns out the absences and poor performance were because she was using us as a prop while she made her side gig her main gig. The advice from you and the readers about how to handle the situation was really useful and gave me perspective on how to move on from the resignation as well as how to manage the team's response. So thank you to everyone for your support. Burton and we were both made redundant in a team restructure shortly after my letter was published, but we're both thriving elsewhere. In fact, my new role is a significant step up in pay and responsibilities in a field I'm really passionate about with a lovely team, so happy endings all around, I guess. So again, let me know down in the comments if you were right or wrong. I'll be honest, I almost didn't want to speculate because it feels like a risky thing. Feels like that gamble you would take when you walk up to a woman and ask if they're pregnant. For me to hear this story and go, oh yeah, that person's faking stage 3 cancer, like that's an unwinnable position if it turns out they weren't and they were just stressed out. Suspicious Shoelaces left a comment on the saga commenting, I actually lived this. Colleague told everyone they had terminal brain cancer, shaved their head and everything when they lost their hair because of chemo. We were politely asked not to talk about or inquire about the wigs. We worked at a cancer charity. Freak that person. And also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories with crazy updates, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? Our next story is Stopped a Friend from Becoming My Stepmom, October 30th, 2025. I found out this sub exists and now I need to share. Sorry to keep it vague, but I'm not trying to start anything if a TikToker finds this. My mom passed from cancer before she was 30, and it was me and my dad. He was normal, not the most reliable, but I love him. He dated but never remarried. When I was in college, I still lived at home, so my friends came over often. As you can tell, one of them and my dad started hooking up. I found out, which they took as the green light to just start dating openly, and my view of my dad just shattered. I felt betrayed by both of them and stopped having friends over and just stayed out. But then another friend gave me an idea to get in the way of their star-crossed lover story. So I started being creepy to her. Said things about how lucky I would be to have such a gorgeous stepmom, how my dad must be treating her right, how I could learn from him, really leaning into some adult entertainment brain rot fantasy. They lasted less than a year. My dad tried to talk to me about it, but I said we just have the same tastes and how I want to have her around more. I'm distant from my dad to this day, since I would rather not risk him using me to find a lady again. And now some of the interactions OP had in the comments of that original post, Key Canary left a comment saying, "Oh my god, good job at saving your life, that's so cringe." The OP responded, "I have no regrets either." So OP goes on to post an update 2.5 months later, January 12th, 2026. It's been a few months since that post, and the short and skinny is that I've cut my dad out of our lives now. Being distant or low contact, as it's called, wasn't good for me. To be more detailed, my spouse and I are in marriage counseling. I made a joke after that post that my spouse isn't allowed to paw after our infant's friends if I die. My spouse is a no-nonsense, stoic, non-reactive, reliable person, and this highly offended them. The holidays made it hard, but we've had 3 sessions so far. Things I learned are my dad didn't spend time with me, I spent time with him. A child should learn to be independent, but that they can still rely on their parent. And that him dating my friend hurt me more than I realized. He never took an interest in my life, never took me to the movies unless he was already going, rarely ate out together because we had food at home, kept my hair short because maintenance was expensive. So when he started to pamper and invest in a woman the same age as me, it was everything I never got. So he could do it, he just didn't want to. I thought he was reliable because some kids had it worse, and that sucked. The counselor asked if we had a son, would my dad pay attention? I said no, spouse said yes. So I trust my spouse on that one, and that sucks. But I don't trust my father at all. And he didn't call, not for Thanksgiving and not for Christmas. My other relatives called. The baby can't talk, but babbles and squeals, and he didn't call to hear her. So he's blocked now, and I'm not going to give him the grace or courtesy to know it. I'm putting that energy and attention he doesn't deserve to my child. OP then left an update comment saying, "Spouse gender reveal, it's a boy. I'm a woman and my husband is, well, my husband." He wants to just say a few things and has given me permission to share his words to this comment for being the most reasonable and patient. He has never took the implication that I was calling him a predator. He was, as you said, and after some workbooks, more upset that I could ever picture him giving our daughter the childhood I had. He has to restructure his thought process that my being low maintenance was never a good thing or a benefit for him, and he shouldn't have taken that as a means to be lazy with effort in our relationship, and acknowledges that this behavior could be modeled to our daughter negatively. So we're going on real dates. He's also working on talking to me instead of going off on a lecture, which was how marriage counseling came into play. He also says that I wanted to fall on my sword to make it seem like he's played no role in this and I'm still struggling to let go of putting emotions onto myself instead of just letting them be. He also hates jokes, but is willing to learn since Knock Knock is a huge hit for our baby. Now I'm going to log off and not touch this account for a bit because it's not good for me right now. To everyone else with a crap dad, we're a big club, but let's do better. OP also clarified about the eating out comment saying, "Correct. If I wanted to do anything that didn't align with what he wanted to do, I would be told that he's too tired, maybe next time, work was hard, I went to too many car shows and not enough park." The counselor pointed out to me how he was never too tired for those, but too tired to be my dad. So that's my dad. The timeline, it happened years ago. My college years are long behind me. The joke, I really meant in the future, like when she's as old as I was. Not that I'm dying within a few hours or tomorrow. My spouse understands this. The joke was wrong, and it was a symptom of my issues, and I accept that my attempt to be vague has caused some misunderstandings, but to say I joked about my spouse becoming a baby R-wordist or that I inappropriately contextualized my infant is way off base. I think say what you will about whether or not it's bad enough that OP's dad would be dating somebody OP's age, but the fact that it was literally one of OP's friends is what made it especially gross. I mean, just knowing that your dad and your friend are hooking up, that's gross enough, but it's also clearly a huge violation. It's not even like friend code, it's the almost written unwritten dad code. Kind of what OP alluded to in the strategy they used, it's like adult entertainment brain rot scenario. That shouldn't actually happen on time. Lord knows my actual plumber is never on time. CaseX Casey left a comment on the saga saying, "First post, my dad was a creep with a girl my age. Here's my funny story about how I ruined it for them." The second post, "Yeah, it turns out my dad sucked for more reasons and I've got some baggage that I never dealt with." Also, for any of you awesome people still listening in, I would love to have any kind of feedback about the channel, the graphics, the subtitles, the voiceovers, the way I show things on screen, the titles, the thumbnails, etc. If you have any feedback, please let me know down in the comments. All I want to do is provide the best videos possible. Our next story is, my roommate had been gambling the rent money away. She didn't tell me we got evicted. We have 5 days to leave. Original post, December 4th, 2025. I'm still shaking. My roommate is in her mid-70s. Her name is the only name on the lease. I found the room on Craigslist. It was the only place I could afford. Also, I'm from a different country. I have debt I'm paying off from my coming here. She's always left me alone. I pay her the money for the rent and utilities because everything's under her name. Everything was fine for almost a year. Last month, though, she gambled away the rent money. But I thought it wasn't a problem because she said she got a loan from her son. So imagine my surprise today when I found out from the sheriff's department a notice to vacate in 5 days. I asked what was going on. She gambled away the loan she had gotten from her son. Also, last month wasn't the first time she gambled away the rent money. She had done the same the month previously. And the money I gave her for this month's rent, she gambled that as well. We had been given a 30-day eviction notice, which she didn't tell me about. There was a hearing, which she didn't tell me about. No one showed up, so the judgment defaulted to the landlord. Now we have 5 days to vacate. She'll be fine. She's moving in with a friend. Meanwhile, I know no one. I mean, it's funny because I was already planning on moving out at the end of the month after 2 more paychecks. I found a room that just requires me to have $1,000 to move in, but I have only $280. I can't come up with $720 in 5 days. I'm not saying this to ask for money. I'm just mentioning this because the irony is so cruel. I don't know where I'll sleep. I don't have a car. Also, I did contact the police to tell them that my roommate had been stealing from me, but they called it a civil matter to be brought up in small claims court. How can I focus on going to court when I don't know where I'll be in under a week? This is my worst nightmare come true. OP then clarified a few things in the original post's comments. One commenter wrote, "That doesn't happen in a month. She's been playing you for a long time. It takes months to be evicted, and that's if the landlord is lucky. Some evictions drag on for a year." OP responded, "Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. I was being used." A second commenter wrote, "Does the landlord know you've been living there? If not, she's been illegally subletting to you." OP said, "I honestly have no clue. Nothing would surprise me anymore." OP also clarified, "I'm fairly close to LA. I'm in India. I still haven't been to LA or San Diego yet, though I am told they're near." OP then went on to post an update December 22nd, 2025, 18 days later. Update, my roommate had been gambling the rent money away. So I had posted previously that my roommate had been gambling the rent money away for a few months at the very least and got us evicted without telling me. I only found out when I discovered a 5-day notice to vacate from the sheriff's department on the apartment door. Well, I was homeless for the first time in my life. I slept in an unlocked classroom at a nearby university. I kept my possessions in a storage unit. It definitely wasn't pleasant, but I have to recognize people have had it worse. And then a miracle happened yesterday. I work at a nursing home, and I've become pretty friendly with the daughter of one of the residents. I told her what happened to me, and guess what she told me? Well, she has a room for rent and it's empty anyways. Why don't I move in and I'll pay her the rent when I get paid after the first week of January? I am shocked. I genuinely thought I was going to be homeless for a lot longer. She is so sweet and super kind, she even made me dinner. I am so thankful for her. I'm still stunned. Also, she helped me move my things in, which isn't much, just my clothes and laptop basically. That's my update. I've never felt so elated. This was a nightmare. At least I have learning experience and know what to look out for, and I'm definitely going to focus all my free time on suing my former roommate. I think a story like this is kind of exactly why they always say gamble responsibly. To be honest, I feel like the problem is these days is that it's so prevalent and so advertised everywhere. For people who are too inclined to something like that, I feel like personally it's akin to constantly blasting somebody who's an addict with one thing, the exact thing that they're addicted to all the time. It makes me wonder sometimes if this is just like the new normal that we're just going to have to get used to, or if it's ever going to like build up to something. Bug Hunter left a comment on the saga saying, "It's easy to assume the only people whose lives are destroyed by gambling are the gamblers themselves, but they invariably drag everyone else around down with them. I was reading a book about the Foxwoods Casino in Connecticut, the first Indian casino on the East Coast. And literally on the very first day, they found people leaving their children in their cars for hours while they gambled." Our next story is new update found out my female 19 manager, male 29, has an after-work podcast where he talks about his employees. Original post February 27th, 2023. No, you're not reading the title wrong. I thought my friend, John, was pulling my leg when he told me, but he recently found out and told me about it because I was mentioned in said podcast. For background, this is an office job, and I'm interning as a phone rep mostly while also in college. John showed me the podcast that someone showed him after finding it, and that's how I found out. Long story short, it's one of our managers, Josh, and his friend on the podcast, and his friend doesn't work at the company. He doesn't solely talk about his employees on the podcast, he also does sports and politics, but the segment where he did was about work stories related to his job, and I'll refrain from the actual title for obvious reasons. One of the clips John showed me was about a girl who went on maternity leave and the girl who replaced her temporarily, and he made jokes comparing them, using their first names, and even called her replacement R-worded. However, the clip about me involved my Instagram. Long story short, I haven't used Instagram in years, and my last post was literally 4 years ago, when OP was in high school and was 15 years old. Maybe I should have had it private, and I've since deleted it this week. On the podcast, he talked about how some of the managers follow each other and some of the employees, but that there were a few that he didn't follow that led to him to search them to learn more about his team, and that's how he came across mine. He said I had a hidden talent of dance from high school that I didn't tell him about, and he joked it was because I didn't want to be hit on. He also said my boyfriend must be happy with my flexibility even though I'm single, and his friend said that that was the reason I posted, and that my face wasn't doing it. Josh also joked about if I was still flexible, and his friend said to drop something to have me bend down. Josh is a jokester at work, but I was floored by his video. It's on YouTube, and while it doesn't show his face, his name is in the description, and my friend wants to address it with HR after telling the mother who was on maternity leave. However, he's not sure if there's anything else we should do beforehand besides having numbers, when we go in, that he thinks will be important, and he wants us to go in together. So here is my question. Are we handling this correctly, and is there anything else we should do beforehand to get our ducks in a row? Perhaps even legally, such as consulting a lawyer? So this first post does have me kind of curious because I'm trying to think, does OP have a case here? Like, could it be enough to prove harassment or something like that? I mean, let alone the fact that they're saying those things about a 15-year-old OP on their Instagram. OP then went on to post the first update, January 22nd, 2024. Almost 1 full year later. As I'm writing this, I'm no longer at the company. My coworker and I went to HR according to the advice we received, and we used a YouTube downloader to download the videos specifically mentioning employees in case they would be deleted upon him learning of a potential investigation. I also made sure to tell them that the dance videos he commented about me were from when I was much younger, and we also mentioned his derogatory comments about the coworker on maternity leave. We gave them links along with a thumb drive containing copies of the videos we downloaded, and we felt like it went fine at that time. We only received one follow-up meeting afterwards to let us know that they spoke to the manager about it, and that meeting was given separately to my coworker and I. The videos were also deleted around that time, and the manager was never fired, at least when I was there for a few more months. The follow-up meeting was the last update we got before months of radio silence. But my ex-coworker and I have a guess as to why. All of the managers, including the 2 HR workers at our office, are tight, and they all often go out for sushi after close in the same plaza as our office too. They also follow each other on social media, although the manager's podcast was never linked to his personal social from what we saw before going to HR. So we weren't exactly expecting much when they're practically friends and post Instagram photos together, including the HR managers with them too. Months went by with no updates following the follow-up, and said podcast manager began to treat me somewhat differently, like being short with me or giving me side eyes too. Even the mother on maternity leave made a complaint after we told her about his comment, but again, nothing came from it to our knowledge. I eventually put in my 2 weeks, and that was pretty much it. His podcast channel is still up and posts new episodes, but nothing pertaining to work or coworker stories from when I last checked. My coworker friend said he wouldn't be surprised if the other managers already knew about the podcast, given how tight they were. I began looking for other work around the time we initially visited HR because he really came off as a creep. There was another comment from the video about me that I forgot to add, but he said that he should offer a prize for whoever had the best split at the annual Christmas party as a way to see if I still had them. They play fun games at the Christmas party, and the whole thing just felt gross to me. I'd already left the company by the time of the party, but it's creepy just knowing that a manager I thought was completely normal could be such a creep. OP then went on to post a second update more than a year and a half later, September 17th, 2025. One of my biggest regrets from my old job was not getting legal advice before talking to HR. Some suggested going to HR instead, and my parents did too. I took their advice because I was 19 at the time, but now I regret not following my own instinct. Perhaps it wouldn't have gone to court, but a lawyer could have offered better advice on how to approach HR and potentially receive some sort of settlement, as some stated. The reason I'm thinking about it again is because of a new video Josh posted on his podcast that my ex-coworker told me about. Josh and his buddy made a video about a new job he landed before leaving the office I used to work at, and in the episode, he reflected on some things from his previous job too. He opened up about why the work story segment stopped and how someone complained to HR about it. He said that work stories would continue at his new place, but that they would have fake names so no one could accuse him of anything. Despite saying that he wouldn't go into full detail about the HR incident, he said that someone got offended about how he said he looked up the social media of his employees to learn more about them in a since-deleted episode. He also said some people popped up randomly, like how Instagram suggests people you should follow. He said that people shouldn't be offended when people see their posts because they shared it to the world. So if they didn't want anyone to see it, they never should have posted in the first place. And while he didn't mention me by name, he referred to me as the girl who did dance and complained to HR about him. He also pointed out how I later left the company and was always quiet, which was why he looked me up. He said that his comments about me were a joke and that I couldn't take it as such. He also said that he went along with his idea at the Christmas party, where each manager suggests a game with a prize to see who had the best split, and I didn't attend because I'd already left the company. The fact that he was allowed to do the game that he mentioned in the video I downloaded and gave to HR, where he wanted to see if I could do the splits, shows the lack of seriousness regarding my complaint. Unless they somehow forgot or didn't watch the full video. Josh's entire video was making excuses for what happened, and the only lesson he learned was to make future names anonymous for work stories. He also said my dance posts from high school were thirst traps and that I used it against him with HR. In light of his recent video vaguely mentioning me, I reached out to a counselor at my job to ask if it would be appropriate to reach out to his new job that he actually mentioned in the podcast about what happened at his previous job, with the downloaded proof of him sexualizing me and calling that other employee the R word from his now deleted podcast, and she said that it would be appropriate. She also pointed out how he openly sexualized me for the splits and proceeded to have a competition about them at the Christmas party, so there's enough there to hopefully prevent it from happening somewhere else after I try. My friend who alerted me to the video is also open to backing my claim. I also want to add something about how tight the managers were at my old job. 2 of those managers are now engaged, as confirmed by social media. Most of the managers often went out to eat after shifts at a sushi place in our plaza, but you would see photos of them together at other things on their social media, with the lead HR manager too. I'm glad to no longer work there because it felt impossible to receive support when they're practically close friends. OP about another half a year later went on to post a new update, January 4th, 2026. This is the last time I'm going to return to this. I had moved on from Josh for over a year since I left my previous job, only to be reminded of him by John when he made his latest video about me. From my last update, I've since asked John to no longer give me updates about Josh because he's infuriating, and I've blocked Josh on everything. John and I reached out to Josh's new job with the same evidence we presented at my previous job. We told them about what he called the maternity mother, the creepy stuff he said about me, along with the clips we downloaded too. We also mentioned Josh's latest video where he complained about me going to HR and said work stories would continue at his new job. However, despite everything we told them, Josh still works there. Josh followed through on his promise to resume the work story segment at his new job, and he's made recent videos about starting there. Perhaps they don't care because the videos don't show his face, but he explicitly named the company, although he now uses fake names when referring to the employees. My therapist also agrees with moving on and said we did more than we had to. I hate how the world seems to cater to people like Josh, who are blatant in their behavior and face no consequences. His old job even embraced the splits joke about me by allowing him to do a splits competition at the Christmas party. The idea he had to see if I still had them. I didn't mention this in my previous posts, but Josh even joked about that he might have touched himself to gymnasts in the past during the now deleted episode where he sexualized me. And I was 15 in the clips he referred to of me for my Instagram. I've told that to both Josh's previous and current jobs, along with a downloaded video with a timestamp to it that we provided, but nothing came from it. I'm moving on because just thinking about it aggravates me. Also, for those who keep messaging me to tell me that I can still try to sue Josh, his original video about me was over 3 years ago, and I'm ready to move on. Does anybody else think OP needs to just rip the Band-Aid off and out this guy and out the podcast or whatnot? It almost feels too weird to me how guarded OP is about this. I guess not revealing it is part of somehow moving on from it. I guess they won't get tied up in it or something. Joe to the G left a comment saying, OP should just point Reddit towards the podcast at this point. I know one surefire way to get Josh to stop. Our next story is, my wife and I found a brand new hooking up doll on a back road where we live. Original post, January 5th, 2026. My wife and I found a brand new hooking up doll on a back road where we live. It included a link to 2 photos. The first is a close-up of a skin tone block with the logo WM Dolls on it. The second is an open box lined with a white fleecy blanket and a life-sized, unclothed female doll in it. The doll has a huge chest and a black cloth draped over its midsection. Its head is not visible from this angle. All OP wrote in this original post is, we now have the address where it was supposed to be delivered, but am I supposed to bring it back? How does this even work? A commenter on the original post asked, y'all took it home? A second commenter replied, not enough privacy alongside the road. Another commenter said, could you imagine being a cop, coming up on a pair of people pulling a body out of a ditch to put in their trunk? Somebody else replied to that commenter saying, hey, what are you doing? This is usually the other way around. A different commenter said, officer, it's not what you're thinking. Nothing creepy like a dead body or something. Just me and the missus loading up an adult doll we saw randomly in the side of the road right here. Carry on, have a nice night. Another commenter said, I think he had a cunning plan of ordering it and taking his wife for a ride and found it. The phrase, well, honey, since we found it, should we take it home? Was followed up later in the day with, do you want to try it? It's not a real threesome. Another commenter wrote, nope, they said address label is on it. Now here is where it could be fun. This person dumped it there because they knew it wouldn't be approved of. Imagine their face when they open the door and it's back on their doorstep. I would totally put it on their step, ring the bell, and hide in the bushes like 3rd grade again just to see their reaction. The last comment said, deliver it yourself. When you drop it off, tell the guy, good choice. It felt just like the real thing. Enjoy. All jokes aside, OP then posted an update 2 days later on January 7th. Update on the doll. There are now 4 photos at the top of this post. The first image is the same image of the company logo on the flesh-toned block. The second is a close-up of the doll's foot, showing the marks OP describes in this following post. The next 2 images are photos of a dirt road in the woods. OP writes, to answer some FAQs, no, we haven't tried it out. Sorry guys, thought it was new because someone took a lot of care with it. You'd think it would be beat up or obviously used. The box wasn't marked with an address or name, which leads us to take it home to see what was actually in it. My wife thought it might be car parts. I thought it may be a trampoline, though I was secretly hoping for drugs or money. Last 2 pictures are where it was found. Nearest house is 2 to 3 miles and 20 plus from the delivery address. As you can see, it's out there. My wife is the one who actually noticed the box. I had driven past it and she asked me to stop so we could check it out. So no, I didn't buy it and leave it for her to hopefully discover while we drove our kids around so they could fall asleep. The name and address we found on an inner flap of the box itself is not the shipping label. That was missing. The previous owner just probably didn't realize there are manufacturer or secondary labels on packages. Yes, we had to open it to find the previous owner, and yes, we tried to find the name on the package with no luck on social media. I actually thought it might have just been a fake name because of that. I had to ask around in the doll communities to find out more about it. It should be fully unclothed, wearing only white socks as it's a brand signature. It should have been wrapped in a special heavy plastic, and since the models that come with a slot for interchangeable heads should indeed come with 2 interchangeable heads and an owner's manual displaying the exact model, this did not have that. Clothes don't come on the doll because the material that the skin is made of absorbs color from the dye. See the black marks on the toes. No, we can't return the doll to the address we found because it's not a residence. Thought since I couldn't contact the owner on social media and I wasn't familiar with the address, I would just try to get a street view of the address and drive there. Turns out it's a business. It's a freaking funeral home. My wife looks at the site to look for employees and we find the name we were looking for, and from there his Facebook. He's an older guy and doesn't post much. So I guess I get that, but the profession definitely made the situation a little darker than what we assumed. I go there with a human-sized box asking for a specific employee, and this doesn't work out well for anyone. As of now, before this post was made, before the doll was found, this gentleman applied to change to a different funeral home. Are they related? I have no earthly idea, and I don't just want to assume the worst. We're not a large enough city to have a morgue. A mortician by trade is always in the company of, you guessed it. The more we look into this, the stranger it gets. I've still said nothing about this gentleman's personal information, where he works, his address, city, state, nada, but it's weird. So, from the way it sounds, somebody with a name that works at that funeral home had it delivered to the funeral home, and then it somehow ends up 2 to 3 miles away in a ditch off the road somewhere. I just have to say, this is the weirdest pump and dump scheme I've ever heard of. And yes, I came up with that myself, I didn't bite that off anybody. One commenter wrote, put a toe tag on it with the owner's last name and leave it outside the funeral home. OP replied, my father-in-law says that we should use it as a Halloween decoration. Like, yeah, that's exactly the kind of vandalism we need next year. Have to chase teenagers off with a hose. Another commenter wrote, TLDR, dude concocts crazy internet story to not get busted with sex doll. OP replied, "Since you have trouble reading, it's more like wife devices elaborate way for husband to find sex doll they can't afford." One commenter wrote, "I'm worried about that. Dude is ordering pretty much a dead person to his job. Did he mess around with dead people, or is this his stepping stone to actually doing something?" I haven't read through the comments, but you said morgue, and that's where my mind went immediately. One person replied to them saying, "Maybe they use it for practice. I imagine a human-sized doll with similar features could be useful and more ethical than training on actual corpses." Another added, "I never even thought of this, but it makes so much sense. A realistic dummy used for like medical training can be tens of thousands. Meanwhile, this looks fairly realistic and is only like $1,000 or so. That would especially explain why this dude had it delivered to the funeral home rather than his own freaking house." Then another commenter chimes in saying, "I am a mortician. So first off, no funeral home is going to order a thousands of dollars hooking up toy to use for practice with cosmetics or dressing. All of that stuff would be taught by either a mortuary school or a licensed doctor on either legitimate decedents, or they make dummies you can practice on in mortuary school. My theory is this gentleman lives in the funeral home. Many have apartments. I live in the one I work at with my family. He gets his mail delivered there. He probably decided to throw it out for whatever reason, and as he lives at the funeral home, was worried someone would see it in their dumpster, so he dropped it off in the middle of nowhere. I don't think it's for practice, and probably isn't anything malevolent. Likely an older, lonely man who got himself a partner, didn't need the doll anymore, and didn't want anyone to know he owned it out of embarrassment." One last commenter wrote to OP, "My dude, this is the point where you just abandon this whole thing. Let it be a funny story you're still telling years from now. You keep this up, and any weird crap that comes of it is on you." OP responded, "People have been offering to buy it since I posted it. Things are already weirder than I thought they would be. And after all of that, all I can say is I pray that you recognize that once in a while I can give you some pretty interesting stories." Our next story is, "I've slept with both of my best friends, and my boyfriend of 4 years is uncomfortable with that." Original post, April 30th, 2015. I'll be breaking this up into sections just to keep it all in chronological order. Part 1, the background. Let me start right off with the problem. My 2 best friends in the world are male, and I've slept with both of them. It's not as bad as it seems though. It's not like I have feelings for either of them. They're both childhood friends whom I've known for years and years, so I love them both with all of my heart. But the thought of being in a relationship with either of them is unfathomable. One of them, we'll call him Rob, is married now, but we've had a brief relationship senior year of high school. We broke up after less than a year for several reasons. I wanted to travel abroad for university, he wanted kids and I didn't. His mother didn't think I was a good fit for him. I know, but we still remained friends. The other, we'll call him John, is a bit more complicated. I would never date him because he has serious issues. And it's not so much the issues that stop me from dating him, but the fact that he adamantly refuses any kind of help or therapy for them. He had some major childhood trauma that he's big time repressing, and it's affected his ability to have a relationship. He's a bit of a womanizer. After I got back from university abroad, I was 23 and all alone, and I needed a place to live. His parents had moved out to a condo on the beach, and they let John live in their old house. And he offered me one of the spare bedrooms for very low rent. So we lived together for a while without incident. I dated a guy for like 2 years, and John had a constant stream of women in and out of his bedroom, but we discovered a system that worked for us, and we became closer than ever. The problem was, one night about a year after I broke up with my ex, we hung out in the house alone and got drunk together. We were both super worked up and hooked up, and we had an amazing time, like really mind-blowing. I don't know if it was because I was drunk or because I'd only slept with 2 other people in my life who were both subpar. Rob and I were virgins and we only hooked up like twice before we broke up, and one of the main reasons I split with my other ex was sexual incompatibility. But either way, it was great and we didn't want to stop. So we kept doing it for about 8 months. At that point, one of his old exes came back into his life and he realized he had feelings for her. We tried to stop hooking up, but quite frankly, we have no self-control. I realized I was 29 and had a steady job, and there was no reason I shouldn't move out. So I left. We had one last night of hooking up the day before I moved out, and agreed to never talk about it again. Part 2. The boyfriend. You can skip this section, I suppose. It just talks about how my boyfriend, who we'll call Sam, and I got together, and outlines some of his insecurities and why this may be a problem for him. Sam had been a longtime coworker of mine. We started working together when I got my job at 26. He was 29 and getting divorced. He told me all about it as it was happening. He and his wife got married way too fast. She had just broken up with her ex, and 5 months into dating Sam, she discovered she was pregnant with her ex's child. She pressured Sam into marriage because she didn't want to be a single mom, and he agreed. You can imagine why this didn't work out. Anyway, Sam and I became best friends in the workplace. He would tell me stories about his divorce, and I would tell him embarrassing childhood stories about Rob and John. Oh yeah, didn't I mention? We all work together. Rob and John are in different departments, but it's a pretty close-knit company, so he knew I had dated Rob in high school, but he never knew about me hooking up with John. When I told him I was moving out of John's house, he asked me why, and I just said that we were getting older and it was time for me to get my own place, which was absolutely true. That just happened to be the day that he confessed his longtime feelings for me, and we began to date. Part 3. The problem. About half a year ago, we decided to move in together. His lease was ending and I owned my house, so he moved into my place. He sometimes works really late nights, and on occasion, I'll have Rob or John over to keep me company when he does. Last night, he was meant to be working until about 11 p.m. John was here and we were hanging out in the living room. It was about 10:30 p.m. and we were drinking a bit and talking kind of loudly. John mentioned to me that his girlfriend was always jealous or worried that he and I had feelings for each other. I said that was silly and that just because two people have great sex doesn't mean they're in love. As I said that, we were talking pretty loudly, so I guess Sam came in at some point and heard me say that. I didn't even hear him unlock the front door, but he stormed into the living room and confronted me, asking when John and I had hooked up. He looked equal parts disappointed and angry. John left because he didn't want to be involved in our argument. I explained everything, told him John and I used to hook up when we lived together, and that was part of the reason I moved out of his place, because it wasn't healthy for us to have that kind of relationship. It had been 4 years, and we rarely ever spoke about it, and it hasn't affected our friendship at all. Sam now tells me that he's uncomfortable with the fact that I've slept with both of the people I consider my best friends in the world. He's also uncomfortable with the fact that just a few days before he and I got together, I had hooked up with John. He says it taints our entire relationship because I lied to him about it. I think he's being a bit puritanical about it. Of course I have a sexual past, and why does it matter if it was only a few days before? Since it didn't mean anything, it's not like I had feelings for John, and we always used protection and frequently got tested, and I told Sam that. So it's not like he's concerned about the health risks, he's just jealous. And he wants me to hang out with John less, and he doesn't feel comfortable with us drinking together at all. He also insists that I should make new friends and separate myself a bit from Rob and John, because it's weird that both of the people I'm closest with are people who have seen me naked. I think he's being entirely unreasonable. John and I are both in relationships and we have no feelings for each other whatsoever. The fact that we hooked up with each other for a while is something we want to leave in the past. And to bring Rob into it is just ridiculous. It's been 15 years since we had anything to do with each other romantically, and he's now married with kids. I think Sam just wants to punish me or something because he's weirdly jealous. I honestly don't know what to make of this situation. I figure that this story is kind of a good litmus test for two things. One, how much you would trust your partner in a situation like this, and two, whether or not you believe the statement of straight guys can't have female friends. I mean, to be fair, when Sam walked in, they were both drinking and hanging out together, and OP said the first time they did that, it ended up being some of the most mind-blowing you-know-what in their life. So, is it a crazy stretch to worry about that? One person commented on OP's post saying, "You want to see his point of view? Switch your positions. Put yourself in his shoes. He's got two best friends, who happen to be female, that he also used to sleep with. Now, one night you come home from work, Sam is hanging out with one of them, and you hear them mention how they had great hooking up. Go on, please. Tell me how you react to this knowledge. Is he unreasonable in terms of Rob? Yes, the man is married now. Is he unreasonable about John? No, not really. Are these your two only friends, or do you simply hang out with them the most out of everyone? OP replied saying, I mean, I do have other friends, obviously, but we went to school together and we've been friends for almost our entire lives. But I guess I see where he's coming from with John. I just got so caught up in the fact that he was bringing Rob into it too that I couldn't take him seriously, but when you put it like that. Another commenter said, it's pretty common though that none of us want our significant others to hang out with former lovers, let alone invite them to our shared living space and then have drinks with them in the evening. Sam's issue isn't with the fact that you slept with other people before him, but that you kept these two people in your life so far and continue to involve them in the life that you share with Sam. I think you've been around Rob and John for far too long that you've simply made them a part of your routine life. So Sam's issue with them might seem unreasonable to you when it isn't. The question now is whether you're going to do anything about it. OP replied, that makes sense. I think some part of me was just hoping that since Sam likes both of the guys and is friends with them too, and we've been together for so long, that it wouldn't be a big deal to him, but I understand why it is. At a minimum, I need to stop drinking with John and inviting him over late at night. OP then went on to post an update on July 4th, 2016, 14 months later. I know it's over a year later, and probably no one remembers this post, but I will never forget it because hearing from all of you Redditors changed my life and saved my relationship. So if there's anyone here who read my last post, you deserve to know that you were right. After reading all the comments on the last post, I realized that Sam was not overreacting at all and would have been more than reasonable to break up with me because of this. I showed him my post, and we had a long discussion in which I promised I would never hang out with Rob or John alone again. I told him I loved him so much and he was the most important person in my life, and I would do anything to gain his trust back, even if he wanted me to stop seeing my friends altogether. He said that it wasn't necessary, and he didn't mind if I saw them alone occasionally, just he would prefer if it were in public and not late at night or with alcohol involved. He felt sorry for being judgmental of me, but I told him that he was completely right, and my relationship with John was inappropriate. I just needed something like this to make me see it. So we moved past it fairly easily and are actually now married. It was a courthouse wedding on our 5th anniversary. Very lovely. Now, here's the part where everyone was right. After my conversation with Sam, John and I drifted apart a bit. I still hung out with Rob and his wife, but John broke up with his girlfriend and I no longer felt comfortable being with him alone. So he and I would hang out with Rob, but that happened maybe once or twice a month, where before we would see each other a few times a week. Then last Thanksgiving, when Sam and I announced we were getting married, John actually left dinner early. He replied shortly to all of my messages, didn't return my calls, and barely spoke to me. I didn't see him again until my wedding in December. You can guess where this is going. Thankfully, nothing happened at the wedding, although that would have made for a great screenplay, as someone in a comment on the last post mentioned. It was a small ceremony, just our families, a couple of Sam's friends, Rob, his wife, and John. We went out to a restaurant for a reception dinner, and John seemed withdrawn the entire time. I guessed he was not happy that I was married. So, since Sam and I got back from our honeymoon in January, I've seen John maybe twice. Once for Easter, and again for Rob's birthday. I've tried to say hi at work, but he always makes an excuse and walks away. He didn't even come to Sam's birthday last month. After that, I decided that I would stop trying to reach out to him, and he could talk to me when he was ready. Last week, he was finally ready. Sam was offered an opportunity to travel abroad for 8 months with his job. With me invited to come along, we decided to accept it, and I suppose John saw Sam's Facebook post about it because the next day, John sought me out at work. He asked me if I was really leaving the country for 8 months, and when I said yes, he asked why I couldn't stay. I asked why he cared if I stayed when we haven't really spoken in months. He said, "I'm sorry, never mind," and walked away. But at that point, it was clearer than ever what was really going on. So Sam and I are leaving in September. His job will still be waiting for him when he gets back, but I've decided to find a new one. I'm glad that I'll be out of the country for a bit. I feel really stupid to not have realized that John could have feelings for me. There's never been anything there on my end, so I just assumed it was the same for him since we were able to be roommates and friends with benefits. It seems obvious now. Everyone who commented on my last post was spot on about our relationship not being normal, and I'm so glad that Reddit was able to see what I wasn't. I am so deliriously happy in love with my husband. I don't want to even think about what would have happened had I not posted here, so thank you all again, and I hope this update is in some way satisfying. Tejas Bell left a comment on the update saying, "It takes a really big person to admit they're wrong and then remedy the situation. Congrats on the wedding." OP replied, "Thank you, you're sweet. He makes me want to be a better person." Apparently Reddit does too. Our next story is, 17-year-old female got a call from the police about a work incident and want me to come in to talk. Do I go in? Original, June 5th, 2025. 17-year-old female, have been working at a local grocery store for 2 years. It's a great place to work, and I really would hate to lose my job. This morning, I got a phone call from the police telling me that they've been made aware of an incident at the grocery store that involves me, and they want me to come into the station to discuss what it's about. I told them that I have a shift this morning. They told me to call in sick and come to the station. The only thing I can think it's about is that I've been taking old bakery items and produce at the end of the days when I'm closing. The food either gets sent away as a donation or thrown in the trash. I always make sure I'm not taking them from the donation selection. The manager told me it's okay for me to do this, but I know the owner wouldn't approve. I'm freaking out. Am I going to get charged with stealing? Would I get in this much trouble for taking expired cookies at the end of my shift? I don't even think the owner could prove I've done this. There aren't any cameras at the back room with the garbage. I don't think the manager would tell on me since he tells me and offers me these things. Do I go in? Help. I told the police that I'll see what I can do about work and get back to them. Some of OP's comments, OP clarified, "Sorry, yes, they did tell me to bring an adult with me. Both of my parents are at work, and I was super afraid to call them and tell them and confess that I've been stealing. I guess it's stealing, but I think I do need to call them. We'll do that now." One commenter wrote, "There is a minimum dollar amount for a theft to be considered a crime, if you will, and I want to say it's normally about $700, and it has to be in one theft. If it's below the minimum of whatever is in your jurisdiction, it's likely a misdemeanor, and you can't be prosecuted from what I remember. I used to work in high-value specialty retail, so I had to know these rules." OP replied, "That's a relief, because I really don't think I've taken over $700 in expired food." The police did give them their badge numbers and names to write down to give to my parents. I've tried calling my parents, but they're both at work and didn't pick up. Sent them texts. My shift isn't for another 2 hours, so I'm going to wait for my parents before calling the manager. Update 1, same post, about 8 minutes later. Update 1, I texted my parents and my mom just called. She told me she called the police and that she's coming to pick me up in a half hour to go to the station. She sounded really upset, but not at me. She told me that I'm not in trouble, but to not even call my work. What is going on? Update 2, in the same post, sometime in the next several hours. Wow, thank you for all the advice. I took the initial ones I read and got my parents involved right away. My mom was a boss. I have to think about what I can update and get back to you all later because it's honestly really bad. Like nightmare fuel and legally bad. I'm okay, I think. Was at the station for hours. I'm not in trouble. It was not about stealing cookies, but it's far from over. Sorry for being so vague. Update 3, same post, June 6th, 2025, the next day. First, I wanted to clarify, the police were not suggesting that I go in without my parents. They called and asked to speak to my parents. When I told them they weren't home, they asked me to get them to call them back. When I asked what it was about, they told me the above. When I told them I can't come in today because I'm working, they told me it was important and to do what I needed to do, like call in sick. I apologize for not being more clear about that phone call. A lot of you were concerned the police were trying to take advantage of me. Thank you for caring. I was just freaking out thinking I was going to get in trouble for stealing old bakery items that the manager told me I could take. I've never been in trouble before, so I was mortified that I would have to confess this to my parents. The first few commenters were telling me to talk to my parents, which kinda snapped me out of it and duh, I need to tell my parents. So I did pretty quickly. I don't know what the police told my mom, but she got home faster than she said and took me straight there. My dad was there when we got there. I was freaking out, even though my mom told me it wasn't about me stealing and to not worry about that. She also called my work and told them I wouldn't be coming in for my shift. On to the update. The previous manager was filming employees changing in and using the bathroom. An old coworker was tipped off by someone that they found a video of her on some adult entertainment website. There were dozens of videos posted of multiple girls over many years using the bathroom and changing in the bathroom. I am one of those girls. The only video I saw of myself that they wanted to verify it was me was of me going into the washroom to put my hair up and putting lip gloss on in the mirror. I know there's more, but I didn't want to see it. There was a whole team there of mostly female officers, counselors, etc. I was actually pretty impressed by how they presented and handled it all because, well, like so many of you, I don't trust cops and they've never really made me feel safe. The old manager was arrested. I'm not sure when, but it was before they called me. They got my number from one original victim who gave out numbers of all female employees that she had. It's a whole thing. I was asked many questions. I was also asked to identify 2 unknown victims, like a screenshot from a video. Seems like they're customers who somehow got access to the employee bathroom because no one can identify them. It's been a lot to process. I always thought that guy was a creep. He's the nephew of the owner. I freaking wish it was about pastries. On this update post, one commenter wrote, "I am so sorry this happened to you. I'm glad your parents are advocating for you. Don't allow anyone to minimize or sweep this under the rug. Ask for therapy. Call the police with any questions. There are websites that you can sign up for that will alert you if the creep is ever released from jail. If you want to be involved in the legal process in order to stand up for yourself with something like a victim impact statement that can be used in court, ask the police about it." OP replied, "A few people guessed it, but I already knew what it was by the time I came back and tried to read all the comments. My parents have me set up with therapy tomorrow. I don't feel like I need it, but I understand how these things can grow." One commenter wrote, "Oh my God, I wish I could give you a hug, if you would want one. That is so scary. I'm glad the police took it seriously, and it sounds like they set you up with some counselor contacts and resources. Make sure you keep those, and even if you don't opt to use them right away, you might want to in the future. Human brains are funny about how they process stuff." OP replied, "Thanks. Apparently this has been an investigation for a while now. The OG victim stopped working there 3 years ago, which means he's been filming in there since before I worked there. But he only left 6 months ago, so he was filming while I was 15. So gross." On going back to work, OP wrote, "I won't be going back to work there. It's too creepy." To another commenter, they wrote, "Thanks. My mom told me to take the summer off work and have fun, but I like working, so I'm going to find a new job. It seems so silly now that I was so worried about cookies. I think to avoid that guilt in the future, I'll just not do anything that makes me feel a little uneasy. Save myself the stress." OP then posted a new update. Update December 9th, 2025, 6 months from the previous update. Back in June, I was asking for advice on the subject line. I thought it was because I'd been taking home baked goods that were basically garbage, but turned out a past manager had been secretly recording me, my coworkers, and customers in the bathroom. He was uploading the videos on some Russian adult entertainment site. Some of the videos of me were taken while I was a minor. I got good advice. I'm still getting messages asking for an update, so here I am. Here's my update. Manager got arrested, but was released pretty quickly on bail. His uncle is one of the owners of the establishment and apparently was aware of his pervertedness. Some girls complained about him taking their pictures as well as being inappropriate. Instead of firing him, his uncle moved him from store to store. This caused a pretty big uproar among the local community. The uncle apparently got kicked out from being an owner or something. In total, there were 8 of us that were filmed, ages 14 to 50 something. Court case won't happen until sometime next year. I've gotten therapy and I'm doing pretty alright. The last many months, especially in the summer, were pretty messed up. I'm glad all the info gathering is over with. Court will be pretty exhausting. Myself and the others are suing for damages. There's a lot more I can't say, but that's the gist. Dude got arrested, then released, lots of evidence, corrupt family crap, local uproar. We'll see what next year brings. So, I think I'm not the only one that says, first of all, that is a horrendous turn of events from maybe it was about me stealing cookies to that, and I'm just glad it sounds like this guy will be brought to justice at some point. At least, I certainly hope so. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So what did you guys think of updates only? Let me know down in the comments because this is the first time I've tried something like this. If you want to hear another crazy story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories and maybe some updates.